I've just repaired this M7 Panasonic M7 camcorder. I didn't do a video of myself fixing it, which I suppose I should have done really, but I just wanted to sort of go over what I've done, how I've got it working, and what the fault was, because it's the same fault as I've seen in another one, so it seems to be a common problem. So, I mean, what the fault initially was, the picture was there, but it was breaking up into sort of horizontal bars of, like, they were sort of flashing horizontal sections of the image, if that makes sense at all. But I'll show you what I found the fault to be, and I went about fixing it. This is the power supply circuit of the camera. It takes the unregulated 12 volts from either the battery or the mains adapter and generates the various voltages required by the camera. And the camera sensor, well, the main camera circuitry uses 9 volts, 16 and minus 8 volts, and this is the main 9 volt line here. And what I did, I checked all of these voltage rails as they were going into leaving the main board and going to the camera, and I found that this 9 volt rail was really noisy, and that's what I saw the noise and it corresponded to what we're seeing on screen. And what I found was that these two capacitors, they'd actually leaked. I took them out, and before I replaced them, I checked. I just had a look. I took this C19 out, and I had a look before I was about to put the new capacitor in. I thought I'll just make sure that it's not damaged board, and it had done. So what I had to do then was to repair the damage with some jumper wires. But what I've noticed about these is that, like, this is a 9 volt rail. These capacitors that are across it are only 10 volt capacitors, so there's not much headroom. There's not much tolerance there for the capacitors. I mean, I know they've got to get it into a small area, but 10 volts on a 9 volt rail, it's not. I mean, I suppose it's alright, but it's not. And on this 16 volt one, I've not replaced these, but I think I probably will do. You've got a 16 volt rail. They've got 16 volt capacitors on them. Yeah, I mean, this 16 volt rail, it's only like nominally 16 volts. It's really about 15.2, but still, 0.8 volts. It's not much of a margin. So I think I'll probably replace them as well. Now, you can't really, you've got to desolder them, and I don't really like desoldering things from these boards if I can help it, because whenever you do all like that, you always sort of risk damaging board. But I mean, you can't get in and sort of fatigue them or all like that, or clip them out. There's no room. I mean, you maybe could do with that one because it's sort of out on its own, but with these ones are all bunched tightly together. You can see here the repairs that I've done. These yellow wires and this red one here, and that's the unregulated 12 volts that's going right over here, and the 9 volt one from that capacitor. That's where that capacitor is. Well, one of them. One's here and another one's over here. That's 5-volt rail to the viewfinder. That's the what was it? I think record data or something. I can't remember exactly which one it were. But what I did, I looked in. I opened this up. What I did initially, this is the capacitor, one of them. The other one's that one, I think. When I took it out, I cleaned it all up, and I just got I've got a magnifying glass with a light on it, and I just inspected the board, and I could see little cut, you know, little breaks in traces, and I got the sort of, I got the service manual up, and I followed there's like sort of overlays of the board in there, and I followed traces along and find out where they went and what, you know, what they were, for the ones that I could see on there. And then once I'd done that, I put it back together, and it did. I put this replaced this capacitor in that one, and I put it back together, and it worked, but there were no viewfinder, and that was when I started just checking. I thought, right, well, obviously there's something missing from viewfinder. This is connector that goes to viewfinder, and I looked at what each of these were and looked at where they were supposed to go, and just checked for continuity, and I found that the 5 volts that goes to it weren't there. So that's when I connected that up, and then it worked. Because when I first put it on, it did sort of work, and the autofocus were working, but when I took that out, I think maybe the heating up just finished off one of the traces, because then that was when it stopped working, the autofocus, and I found that unregulated 12 volts weren't connected up. That way the autofocus and the zoom weren't working. So if you've got one of these and you're getting that problem, it's like the image is flashing with horizontal bars, or it might do it for a little bit and then be alright, you know, if capacitor's still sort of working a bit. I'd have a look at them capacitors on 9-volt rail, and have a look at other ones really, because I mean I'm going to probably replace them 16-volt ones as well while I'm at it, and just replace them before it gets too bad. Because I think if I'd have carried on, I think it would have eventually, I would have got no picture after a while. But that seems to be what it is, them 220 microfarad capacitors on that 9-volt rail, because same problem with another one. I mean, these are capacitors. I don't know if you'll be able to, you see that's sort of shiny. There's a shininess to it. That's the electrolyte that's come out of it. It's got a funny smell as well. It doesn't smell very nice. But that's how I repaired it. Another fault what you can get with these, where the zoom don't work or the autofocus don't work, it could be that you know, there's a broken trace of that unregulated 12 volts, because it comes across to this connector that's got this ribbon cable going into it, this flat flex ribbon cable, and it goes to, there's these two boards on here, the process board and the autofocus board. It goes to that autofocus board, and all it's used for on there, I think, is for power for the zoom and the autofocus motor. So if they both stopped working, it could be that But it also, there's another cause to this fault, especially if, say, if autofocus is working but the zoom's not, then it's not going to be that. What it could be is this other problem that's a mechanical problem, which I'll show you, because I'm going to do some preventative maintenance on this, so it'll keep running alright. And you see that this is the camera section. It's screwed onto that by this bracket, and it's connected by this ribbon cable, and then this is for the viewfinder. This just goes to that. And then you take this off, and we can get to what I'm going to show you. Two tiny screws here, really small, so be careful. Well, I suppose there's smaller screws than that, but easy to lose still. So now we've got this zoom motor. Get that. That's the zoom motor. It's not just a motor. This part's the motor, and then this is a sort of gearbox, and that can be turned. It sort of slips on that on the thing, on the shaft. But when the shaft turns, there's enough grip to turn it, because it's like low gear. So this comes apart, you press that down and turn it, and that comes off, and watch out for that spring. And that pulls off. That's like sort of 3 parts, a cog, well, 2 parts, a cog, and then this sort of pressure thing with a felt pad on it, and that comes off. And then some more screws. These are tiny ones. Oh no, the big long one. Once you've unscrewed them, this comes away, and you can take, this comes apart, this top piece comes off, and that's what you've got inside it. Be careful when you're opening that up, because there's a tiny little washer on top of there. But then all you need to do is just get a bit of lubrication and align that washer up and just blob a bit of oil into it. Then that's when you need to make sure that this washer, that tiny little washer's lined up. It is, and like it is really, really tiny. So, you know, just be careful. And that's done it. Realise not right focus. I just blobbed a bit of oil on the underside of that in there and then put it back together. I put maybe a bit much, but I'll just like wipe excess off once I've got it back together. I'll just get a bit of kitchen roll with some asphalt alcohol on it. Get it clean. That should run nice and smooth. I mean, you'll be able to tell whether it's that or, you know, no 12 volts by just checking if there's 12 volts there, really. I mean, it could be, I suppose, if it's zoom, could be like one of the transistors in. There's like a bridge circuit for running motor in, but you know, in sort of forward and reverse. And I suppose one of the transistors could have gone on there, but other than that, there's not that much to zoom thing. That's the zoom motor. And I'll have a look at the autofocus. This is autofocus motor here. I've just realised why it were difficult for me to get to everything, because there's another screw here that I've forgot to take out. It should come away now, yeah. That's got a bit of a gritty feel to it, so I might take this off and see if I can clean it. Yeah, it's like got a gritty feel to it. Anyway, autofocus motor. It's more or less the same as the zoom one. Comes apart the same way. It should be able to pull off. Yep. Be careful. That one's still got a bit of bit of grease on it, but blob a bit more in. Like I say, I'm probably overdoing it a bit with the amount of oil I'm putting in here, but it'll be alright. That turns quite easily. Excess grease will run out of them holes at the bottom, so you can just, you could leave it to sit on there for a while and let it sort of run out, but it'll only go one way, that. And what about this? I'm not sure how I can really clean that, to be honest, without taking the whole thing apart. I don't really want to do that. I just have to live with it. Just like there's a bit of dust or a bit of grit in it. I don't think it's really worth taking it apart for that. I don't want to like end up with optics at lens out of alignment or something, or not be able to work out how to get it back together. Anyway, put this back together. And we should have nice quiet running zoom and autofocus motors now. These will only go one way. have to put it on with that in that position. There, yeah.